All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Platform First Smart Street Lighting webinar. We're very excited to have you here. Before we get started, feel free to drop any questions into the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen as we go along, and we're going to leave time at the end of the presentation to go through them. So now let me introduce today's speakers. Today, you will be hearing from Charlie Nobles, Terrago's VP of Sales, who brings deep expertise in smart grid modernization and connected lighting solutions, and Mike Gunling, our VP of Marketing, who has over 30 years of experience launching and growing industry-leading software platforms. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Charlie to kick things off.
Great. Thank you, Madison. So exciting to be able to provide these webinars and try to help folks that are in different parts of their journey around smart lighting, whatever smart looks like for you. So I hope you take away something in this presentation. But first, I want to talk just a bit about who we are for those of you that may not know Terrago. Terrago provides enterprise software to over 2,000 customers for cities and utilities. And we use that platform, or at least our customers use that platform for managing all operational workflows around any field asset, whether it be street lights or line sensors or meters or other devices that they install in the field they have to maintain. And thus you see why it's so important, especially for utilities and cities, because most of their money is tied up in installing these assets and maintaining these assets. And we have just in streetlights, we currently manage with our enterprise software over 10 million streetlights. So we say streetlights under management with other assets as well and growing. Mike, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here's what we're going to try to do today in 30 to 40 minutes. We're going to talk about an operational platform for managing all operational workflows. And we're going to focus on the streetlight asset. And we're going to focus on this platform. In fact, you see what we've titled this is Why Platform First, Not Hardware First. And just as a kind of a way to prompt this discussion, we're going to talk about the risks. And we've mentioned just a few. You haven't one single vendor chosen to provide your hardware, and now you're married to that vendor. You rise and fall by the success of that vendor, whether it's the product, the company, supply chain. If that company goes under or has issues with their product, now you've got stranded assets. So that's one of the risks. Others relate to just data fatigue. Now you're getting all these alerts and alarms. What do you do with all this data? How do you distill that down into work orders? And there's more. So we're going to touch on several. The principle we're going to postulate is focus on the platform and describing your workflows before you chase after the controls. And the last thing I'm going to posit is that Terrago, our platform, is a system of record. It can integrate into all your back office enterprise solutions. It can coordinate between those and the assets in the field and the workflows related to both and be the system of record. So we're going to take 10 ideas, 10 core principles we're going to talk about that should be part of your plan for deploying, installing smart controls or no smart controls, other types of fixtures, managing the workflows, all of the above. Talk about 10 of them. And then we're going to show you, Mike's going to review 4 specific use cases that combine one or more of those ideas, those elements. So find yourself in this journey as we walk through it and be prepared to ask questions at the end. Hopefully we'll help you understand how to make this more successful for you. Next slide, please, Mike. So very simple. There's 2 per slide. So this is a very high level. There's no way we can fully unpack what each of these elements means for you. And again, we distilled these 10 ideas out of years of working with customers to develop in their program, to implement the program, to improve the program. And these are largely in chronological order. Not exactly, but each one of these is, I'm going to make a statement. I will defend it just a bit. You find yourself in a pain point I mentioned, or somewhere in these 10 ideas, you'll where you are in your journey today. So the first is this idea of system of record. Now, utilities and cities have asset management systems, they have GIS systems, they have billing systems, customer systems, and other systems, outage management systems, etc. And each one of those is like feeling a part of the elephant, the blind man feeling a part of the elephant, trying to describe the whole. A system of record would integrate with all those systems for the elements they need, but actually it retains all the valuable information around how do you manage this operational platform for your outdoor lighting. So think about and define what is going to be your system of record before you deploy. Now, several of these ideas are things you do before you deploy, and that's kind of the key idea here. And by the way, when we're talking about smart lighting, but really we're talking about poles, fixtures, brackets, the control itself, the circuits that feed the lights. In some cases, utilities and cities use different circuits with circuit switchers to keep power to a light in case one circuit goes bad. And those circuit segments are also part of what you're managing if you're managing streetlight operations. So think around all those assets that all come together at a pole location and wants me the system of record. Now, once you've done that, the clear next step is think about your workflows. Now, when customers tend to start a new deployment, they're so excited about installation. I've got 8 months to install 20,000 fixtures and nodes or some period of time, and it's all about how fast can I install them as per the project record that I got approved. And they don't think about what happens after you install. The day you install a node, it now is a used car, right? It's going to have maintenance requirements. People still running the poles, believe it or not. Fixtures fail, drivers fail, the nodes fail, the circuit goes out. There's inspections needed. You might be thinking about doing a full boots on the ground audit before you do a deployment. You have outages. They could be caused by the fixture itself. They could be caused by a power failure in an area. How do you design? How are you going to design and manage the workflows around all these other ancillary requirements that are needed for any streetlight operations system, whether it's passive lights or whether you've got smart control nodes in them? Think that through, because that's going to influence how you effectively manage your O&M out of the straight line operations. Next step. Thank you. Now, this is, I can't say this number three with enough emphasis. We have seen a sea change in this area. Years ago, it felt like cities and utilities had to make a choice. You had to choose one date for the prom. You had to choose one vendor, and that was your vendor for life. So it's kind of like prom through marriage, if you use my analogy. Today, that's not true. If you have an operational platform, you actually can choose multiple vendors. Now, why would you do that? First of all, over time, and we'll talk about scale and properties and service territories, you'll see why types of fixtures you may decide that one vendor solution is best for that type of fixture, and another vendor solution is best for other fixtures. Or you have issues with vendors and you need some pricing, supply chain leverage, and you use other vendors. This is very common in the industry. Well, our platform abstracts out the device specific software called the CMS, which is unique for that vendor's solution. If it's a smart lighting node, it abstracts that layer out. So if you use three vendors, you don't need to learn three software platforms. Everything is through the one pane of glass through TerraGo. And that enables you to integrate multiple vendors and future vendors into one platform. Now, when you move from three to four, you would argue, okay, that's fine, but the way that each vendor's nodes create alerts and alarms or trigger or have thresholds may be different. How do I normalize so that if I get a certain type of alert or an alarm, that I've defined, it is the same whether it's coming from vendor A, B, or C. Well, that's another reason why you need this unified input layer. On the far left of this funnel slide, this is where you have all the different vendors, alerts, alarms, data coming in, which, by the way, is supplemented by field reported information. And then many customers, and by the way, this is a best in class solution, are beginning to include their constituents, the residents, in a way that they could self-report issues with the asset. But when they report issues, and you get all these, they don't want all these calls to the call center. And how do you know they're not duplicated for what the note is already telling you? Would that create two work orders when there should be only one? So at the left, you're taking in all the inputs. And frankly, this is where we see this term called data fatigue. There's some customers that started this, grabbed the hardware, put it in the field, started getting all the alerts, all the alarms, and finally decided, I don't know which of these should result in a work order or not. I'm just going to turn the spigot off for now until I can sort it out. And then they go back and they map the workflows. If you map your workflows first, and you have a platform that can help you triage through stages 1 through 5, then at the end, at stage 5, you apply your business logic. We implement your business logic. And then we know at the end, it is a qualified outage. It should result in a work order and a dispatch crew. What type of crew? What location? What to put on the truck? What you're going to find when you get there. So that you never want to go out and find that, well, I couldn't find the issue, or there was no trouble here. So from the left to the right, we typically call down from 100 to 1,000 to 1 of all the data into actionable things to take advantage of and roll a truck. And we actually can dispatch that crew for you and then integrate with your work order management system if you so desire. So this is a critical part. Otherwise, you'll just be swamped with data. Next slide, please. Now, this is an often overlooked piece of this important puzzle. It's one thing to have a back office solution, a laptop, and see trends and be able to see what's going on, but you have to think through, how are you going to execute in the field with your own crews, third-party crews or contractors? How do you dispatch? From what op center do you dispatch from, which is maybe closest? Do you route optimize to make sure they have the right gear on the truck? They put that gear in from the inventory. So this is an area where you have to think through, how do you efficiently get the right crew to respond to that work order, that trouble ticket, the right location, and then have something for them which is unique for them. Most of these CMSs I've seen are built for back office solutions. They're not ever intended to put on a hardened tablet or a smartphone for field crew use. In field crew use, you need a work order, a spatial representation of where they're going exactly, with some key fields you've described for them to complete the work order, and then hit the button, the work order is finished, and then the data flows back into the back office. You need that streamlined approach, which is native to mobile. And the CMSs are not typically built native to mobile. So think through your field execution, because what the field does is the truth. That's the standard of truth, is what the field sees is what you need to see. Now, having said that, there is another part in number 6 where someone manages and owns this whole process, and they have to report on this process. Do you have the visibility into what's happening? Now, unfortunately, in this and some other areas, we tend to see over time that projects run, and at the end, the last fixture is updated, the last node is installed, and you see how far outside of your parameters you have landed, how you've missed the KPIs, how you've taken 4 months longer. Then there's this postmortem and lessons learned, which is code for we didn't meet the goals. And you didn't have visibility during the process. An operational platform gives you the visibility of how things are going all through the process. And that's critical. So what the field sees to execute and then what the back office management sees to report on are two very different personas and two very different set of outcomes and visuals. And you have to support both of those in an operational platform. Next slide, please, Mike. I know I'm going fast, folks, but make a note of where you are in 1 through 10 and what issues you've seen. Contact us later. We'll have some Q&A time. We can talk about it. We can help you unpack it. But I'll give you the high level 10 points. Number 7, this is similar to 6. It's aligning your deployment with your goals. Now, you have a business case. You've got it approved, how long it's going to take, what you're going to do. You've chosen vendors. You've mapped things out. And then as you go, again, you are comparing your costs of deployment to the cost you told management when you got approval for the funds. And any discrepancy, there's two elements to this. One is tracking against that as you go through the process. The other is the ability to call an audible. For instance, you're using third-party crews. You find that their crew productivity is lower than you expected in terms of how many units they could install or fix per day. Your internal crews are better. You decide the only way we're going to make this business case work is if I swap that, I use internal crews, or I use a different third-party crew. Typically, we've seen without some visibility to these metrics in real time, you have no way to call that audible because you don't know until it's too late. Be honest with you, an operational platform is your QC before you stroke a check and pay those crews or those contractors for what they got done. Because you know what they did and how effective they are, and you know it in time to make changes as needed. Number 8, this is one we see a lot. Again, you remember back, it's like Christmas morning, you're going to install all these nodes. It's so exciting. We're going to have the kickoff. We're going to launch it and get going. And if you think about it, if you are taking thousands of streetlights and now you're starting to either upgrade them to LED and or add controls, then day one, you have two different types of assets that you're managing. One are the passive lights you still have out there that may not be touched for months. And the other are the new lights and nodes that you have installed. And both require operational maintenance, repair, replacement. So can you manage your fleet of old fixtures and or old nodes, photocells, while you're deploying the new? And frankly, the day you start deploying new, you will see RMAs. You will see issues with fixtures. You will go out to install the smart node and you will find that the fixture is broken. And you have to repair that immediately. So can you track and manage all parts of the life cycle? These other issues of the life cycle don't go away just because you're started a deployment project. They still have to be managed every day. Your operations platform is not just for the deployment of the new stuff, it's for managing the full life cycle of all the stuff. And that's another key miss we see is thinking through the full life cycle from day one. Next slide, Mike. Now, these last two elements, let me talk about them just a bit. This idea of scale. Now, whether you're a city or a smaller utility or a larger utility, you all have your own definition of what scale means for you. Scale could be we start in the urban areas where we can get higher productivity going from street light to street light to street light, and then we'll do the rural areas later. Or we'll do these areas here with this technology, this vendor, but these types of fixtures out here require a different node. And so you have this idea of scale. There will be differences. This is not a monolithic deployment issue. Every deployment will have scale in territory, in types of fixtures, in regions, in some utilities, and you'll see one of these in the use cases that Mike will talk about was scaling in different states that were not contiguous states. So the issues in one state, in the tariffs, in the crews, in the types of fixtures, and the density are so very different than in another state. And so that alone is a reason to have a multi-vendor approach. But your platform has to accommodate all scale, however you define what scale looks like. It has to grow with you without reworking, and it has to accommodate all the different changes. And frankly, it could also mean that your work rules in each of those areas are different. Then lastly, number 10 is this idea of a unified data foundation. Let me try to describe one way of looking at what this means. What we see is a work order is completed, a node is installed, the data ripples back originally to GIS, and then some data push back office goes from GIS to maybe your financial systems because you charge that city for that wattage. If the wattage of the fixture changed, that's a billing change, right? And then that may go over to asset management. And we see oftentimes some type of modified daisy chain approach of how to get the data out. But every time you translate that data into another system, there are elements it needs, elements it doesn't, they get kicked out. And then the next system might need that data. Part of the unified data foundation is rather a hub and spoke system. The field truth captured when the crew is in the field doing the work, maintaining, repairing, installing, commissioning, whatever it is, that field truth with all those data elements captured need to push out to your systems as a hub and spoke system so that GIS gets exactly what they need. Asset management gets exactly what they need. The financial billing systems get exactly what they need so that they're all updated in real time and together. And that's the only way you can maintain continuity. So that's actually a really important issue. And the second is this: when you send somebody out in the field to do maintenance or repair, wouldn't it be grand if they saw something that wasn't quite right from an earlier maintenance cycle and they could pull up for that node, for that GIS location, they could pull up all of the work history over the last year or 2 years to see what had been done and when, so they could sort out why they found something different in the field, or they found something done to a wrong practice or an old practice in the field. If you don't have a unified data foundation, then you can't pull up that site specific historical background of workflows. His workflows all originate. There's got to be some way of maintaining them specific to that site, whether it's to the fixture, the pole ID, etc. They have to be managed that way through a unified foundation. So I've hit you with a lot of information, 10 items, not enough detail to really fully help you, but I'm happy to unpack that. So I'm going to move this over to Mike. We'll go one more slide, I think. One more slide. So I've talked about platform first. I give you 10 reasons why consider the platform and put the platform in place before you go into production. Don't chase the shiny objects on the Christmas tree first. Get the tree in place, right? You have nothing to hang them on. And then you can start to move towards a truly successful managed system. I think there's one more slide. Are we going straight? Next slide, Mike. Okay, I'll give it over to Mike, and Mike's going to try to put some shoe leather around this and talk about 4 specific use cases that we've been involved in. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, that was great information, Charlie, Sharon. I'm going to try to leave you with kind of some more anecdotal customer stories, right? So it's good in some ways to talk about the rules and things like that, but when it's a real customer and a real story, sometimes you can find something to relate to that relates to your story, your customer, your organization, your challenge. Duke Energy is the world's largest smart street lighting project, and they did start platform first from day one. So we worked with them from the beginning to do all these things in this play. And we're going to talk about what we did with other customers too. But I think what's interesting is that when you look at this program, it's successful. It's the world's largest smart street lighting deployment. It's also arguably, near as we can tell and talking to industry analysts, also the world's fastest smart street light deployment, rolling out over 30,000 controls a month to 6 different states. And the thing I would leave you with about Duke is because they started the way they started with the platform and all those rules that Charlie just went through with you, the data fabric and the workflows, they have 6 different states. They have different control vendors. They're rolling out 3 different vendor controls now, and they can roll out more in the future. They have different crews, different contractors and employee crews going out and doing deployment work and maintenance work, right? But they have one interface. They have one app. They have one app that compresses their deployment schedule that allows them to roll out at such a massive scale. And that's important. We'll talk about with other customers too, but it is Duke's business rules that define that platform. So Duke has one workflow for the crew that has vendor A going out and doing a deployment, and it's the same workflow for the guy in Indiana as a guy in North Carolina that's going out and performing this install. It's built-in QC. Do I have the right part? Am I going to the right pole? Am I performing the right thing? Do I do the right tests? I can control the light after I've installed it. Yes, it works. Now let me move on. All the things that we do to prevent repeat truck rolls or anything that would slow down the deployment. So they really want to roll this out. This is like a 10, 12-year program of rolling out 2.5 million controls. And so it's massive scale. It stretches the limits of what had ever been done in the industry before. It exceeds what's been done in the industry before by a long shot. And they're successful. And in no small part, and they will tell you this, due to the fact that they went with a platform agnostic approach to managing their controls to get the most out of the controls for what controls do, but to get a platform that gave them the operational savings, the acceleration of deployment, and the maintenance savings. City of Chicago's a different situation, right? They actually started doing controls. They had a program, and they awarded that program to Ameresco, an energy services company. It was a massive program with massive capital investment and massive projected savings. When we met them and Ameresco in the city of Chicago, they were 18 months behind schedule. They only had one control at the time, but the controls weren't yet helping them work better, right? So number one, they were behind schedule in the deployment. So that deployment was tied to their business case. They were going to get $10 million a year in savings from ComEd and rebates for these smart controls being replaced. But they didn't have the systems. They didn't have mobile apps. They didn't have the data. They had not built that platform first fabric that would enable them to do that. But we did it for them quickly. So they started at 18 months behind schedule. When we were done with them, they finished a year ahead of schedule. So that year ahead of schedule isn't just a nicety. It's not just they can take down their project expenses and save a little bit of money that way, a lot of money, but they actually increased their savings by over $10 million. A year to them was worth literally into the city's coffers over $10 million in savings. So we were able to compress that deployment schedule, bring that project in on time, ahead of time, and introduce those savings. The other thing, again, is when I started with controls, there are a lot of benefits of controls, the ROI controls. And we love controls, right? Our partners are the folks who make these great controls. They do make your lights work smarter. They don't make your operations work smarter by osmosis. You can't just throw them in and think you're going to get operations and maintenance savings. In fact, in some cases, you'll be reacting to false alarms and data fatigue and some of the things Charlie talked about. And that's what was happening with the city of Chicago. They had $160 million program for smart controls. And when you looked at their 311 system, folks would call into 311. Somebody would enter a ticket. Hey, my street light's out. They would print out that ticket. Then, based on the Atlas map and the breakdown of contractors and crews, they would put it on a conference table, that printed piece of paper, and put rocks on it. They didn't have scissors. They were working with rock and papers with smart controls out in the field, with a $160 million investment going out into the field to transform controls. Their operations were working with rock and papers. So we were able to integrate with Salesforce.com, reduce that call center volume, automatically route those trucks, figure out, and we also added the electric circuits to the system. So we're able to find out when it's an all-out situation, when there's a power issue, we're able to send that directly to ComEd. We integrated with ComEd systems. We integrated with their billing system so they could get the savings faster. So we did all that. We transformed their operations. Smart controls were an important part of it, but it wasn't everything. And they weren't going to get the full benefit of smart controls without the Terrago software. So again, we say platform first, and I think it's a much better sequence for folks that can do it like Duke Energy, but this was platform second, and it was just one control. It wasn't multi-controls, but they still weren't getting the benefits. So we were able to come in, help the city, and again, save over $10 million initially, get those savings, and most importantly, transform their smart streetlight operations. Georgia Power, again, also not platform first. In fact, they were three platforms at Georgia Power when we found them. So when we talk to our friends at Georgia Power, we work closely with them. All of our customers we work closely with. We become a part of the team, and that's a great thing about the Terrago approach to how we do business. It's software as a service with that second S is the key, the service that our services teams are part of your team. And we customize it for you. So when we met Georgia Power, they had three different CMSs they were logging into to manage 400,000 controls. Oh, guess what? They still had 600,000 other lights to manage, and they still had call center volumes that were over 300,000 calls a year coming into their call center across the state of Georgia. My lights out, my lights out, my lights out, and no good way to even update them or manage them or take advantage of the controls that were there. So we were able to, with Georgia Power, create the community engagement module where we gave them the communication model, which is the web portal where customers could see what was going on with their lights. If there's already a detected issue, they could see it so they don't call, and they don't call the call center anyway. They click on the button and report a streetlight issue. Then they say, yes, I'd like updates. This is where my children go. This is a safety issue in my neighborhood. I want to know when you're going to get this fixed. And we text them updates and we email them updates, whatever they want, however they subscribe to that. So we took the Georgia Power system, their 400,000 control lights, brought them under one pane of glass. Then we brought the other 600,000 lights under that same pane of glass. So they're working smart now with all million lights. They've got benefits of the 400,000 controls. They've got the ability to go. They've added a fourth control vendor. They're able to do everything that they need to do and continue growing controls where it makes sense for them to do so. But they have an entire smart streetlight operations fabric that spans all their controls and all their lights, their smart lights, their smart control lights, and their photocell lights, their Cobra heads, their roadways, their decorative fixtures. It's all being managed now today, and their new construction, their full life cycle. And again, it's the Terrago system is entirely customizable. So if you're thinking, well, this would work for my organization, but I have an interesting situation with decoratives or this issue or that, or this type of workflow or the way I assign work orders, we are going to build this system exactly to your specifications, and it can change day one and day 10,000. We can change it every day, every week. You can add new features to it. So that's really been an important capability for Georgia Power. CPS Energy, so CPS Energy and our partner, Dalkey Energy Solutions, was managing their entire streetlight asset class. They don't yet have smart controls deployed, right? But the reason this is such a great platform story is because they started with the platform here and they use the Terrago platform in their innovation lab as well as in their command center for managing the operations. So they're bringing technology through this vetting, this triage, if you will, from the lab and into the command center. What's it going to be? And then they field it. So they actually deployed solar lights after an illumination study. They did an illumination study based on there were some areas in the city of San Antonio where there were safety issues with a lack of lighting, lack of quality lighting, different things. So they identified these illumination gaps. And with Terrago, they were able to bring in solar lights, vet them in the lab, add them to the platform, roll them out, and manage them. And they filled all those illumination gaps, eliminating areas that had safety issues. And they've increased the safety. They've done that, and they're doing it all in the context of the platform. There's also some images up there about smart crosswalks, right? So they have smart crosswalks. Bring that into the innovation lab. The platform itself enables you to not do more than just multi-controls. It enables you to get the value out of all of your lights, including those without controls. Those are photocells. Allows you to get the most out of controls where you have them. Enables you to do multi-vendor controls, and also enables you to bring in other asset classes. Like in Chicago, the smart traffic signals were brought into the system. Here, the solar lights were brought in, smart crosswalks, and they're piloting controls. And the city of San Antonio will make that investment at some point in their future for smart controls. But they've got a platform to bring it into, and that protects them, that keeps them future proof, but enables them to do so much more than just dim and control lights. And smart controls are great. They make your lights work smarter, and our platform can really make you get the most out of those controls. But a platform is about more than just smart controls, and it's about more than just the streetlight asset class, right? It's about all these different smart technologies and the different ways of working through smart operations for your city or utility. So anyway, hopefully those four stories and the kind of little vignettes are things you can relate to, interesting examples of how the platform could do so much for our customers when they treat it as a platform first type of an approach. I will now turn it back to Charlie so you can land this plane. Thank you, Charlie.
And thank you, Mike. That was great. And hopefully, in the last 40 minutes, I think, um, you've seen something that you are not doing well. You can recover it. I love the anecdotes Mike gave us. Some of these use cases, which we trot out there as these guys have figured it out, they didn't start so well, but they were able to recover and actually go beyond their goals. So the quote that we are leaving you with here is very straightforward here. Your success is not going to be a function of which hardware choice you make. It's going to be a function of your operations choices you make. And most of those operational workflows and decisions are made before your deployment begins. So that's kind of where we want you to think hard and carefully about where you are. It's not too late if you already started, as Mike said. Let's go to this next slide, Mike, if you don't mind. Um, Here we go. So really, platform first. And again, I'm telling you something. This was not in place 3 or 4 years ago. This is something that's happened. It's a sea change, as I mentioned. It is more optionality that you have that you didn't have before. We will begin to see already. We are seeing projects that are coming in early, not late, um, meeting and exceeding the ROI, not um, non-accretive to the ROI. So it's all a function of the right platform. So this is a new opportunity that gives you options as you look at this journey that you're on. We'd like to talk with you. We're going to move to a Q&A next. But and we'll try to field a few questions as we have a few minutes left. But clearly, you have issues, you have questions, you want to talk it out, you want to ask about things we haven't mentioned. We'll add our collective experience. Love to get on the phone with you. You've got our email for Terrago. You've got my information, contact information. You've got Mike's, and we'll love to hear from you. So we'll stop there. I think Madison's going to key up some Q&A for us.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Charlie and Mike, for walking us through that. Let me pull up some of our audience questions. The first one here, how does your platform support multiple lighting control vendors?
Mike, either one of us could take that one. I think we've talked about that, but if you think about it, there are some things that are common across all control vendors, and of course some things are very different. How they are configured to turn lights off and on, how they set up, and how they use thresholds that the customer creates to create alarms and alerts, how they communicate. Is it some type of mesh system? Is it a LTE-based system? Is it a licensed spectrum system of another sort? So latency, data packets, all those things are different. But end of the day, Mike made a key point. When you send somebody in the field to install a node or to service a node, they should not have to know or care what vendor that node came from. They should be able to barcode scan, install, walk through the commissioning steps that are provided by our platform for that node, and they treat it the same way. That way, you can have different contractors or different crews do the work without having to be retrained every time you have a different vendor solution out there. So I think we've touched on that, unless I missed something, Mike.
Yeah, just in case the question is a little bit technical, the truth is we have commercial connectors. So you look at all of our partners that are out there, and we have all the industry leaders, right? We can mention some names. I don't want to leave anybody out, but it's like Itron and Signify and FlashNet and all these control makers. We have 15 different commercial connectors available today, and it's easy for us to add them. So we actually have software that works with those controls and speaks directly to those controls. And yes, we leverage standards and things like caulk, but that standards alone don't get you to true interoperability. So we have taken that step to have all these commercial connectors on our platform, so you don't have to worry about it. And then we will maintain those in the future as new vendors come online and new capabilities come online, and these control vendors actually add new features to their CMS or APIs and things like that. And we work with them very effectively and in a highly scalable fashion because we have that no-code configuration platform where we configure which controls you're using. We don't have to write custom code to help you integrate 2, 3, 4 different types of controls. Those connectors exist today. We simply configure and deploy. So hopefully that answers it a little bit from the software perspective as well.
All right. I think you may have just answered this one. What if we want to start with just one control vendor, but keep our options open for the future?
I'd say amen. I mean, you can do that. That's something you can't do without an operational platform. If you want to do that, you have seen the value of the operational platform. Start with one, add in others. I'll give you an example where this makes perfect sense. There are many utilities looking at building out their own private LTE network. So day one, they want to start with an LTE based node from the carriers, but 3 years in, they want to convert over to nodes that now support their private LTE frequencies. Well, they may go to a whole different vendor for that, but they have to integrate both together seamlessly. So there are many good business reasons why you would need to want to do that. So you can start with one and grow because you will grow, or you could start with 2 or 3 from the start. It it doesn't matter either way if you have the operational platform.
All right. How many smart lighting control vendors do you currently integrate with?
I think Mike's already hit that one too.
Yeah, I
Uh,
got I got two verbose. Sorry about that, Charlie.
I think no, I think it's all good. But yeah, it was funny. We say 14, 15 because what's happening is, and this is important. This is why we do this. Every year there are 2 or 3 new entrants to the market. They may be an entrant that's been very active in Europe, where we have our platform with customers in Europe, other parts of the world who are now coming to the US, or vice versa. Some of the existing players in the market get out of the market for whatever reason, or they focus on some subsegment of the market. So they'll now those nodes are not as available. So we see a lot of flux, but net is expansion, and that's why you need to have a platform that can support any or all of the nodes you supply. Another point I want to make, Mike, to something you mentioned earlier about CMS is having commercial connectors. Yes, we have commercial connectors to all of these node providers CMS. And also we have standard connectors to most of the current GIS systems and financial systems and work order management systems, et cetera, that our customers use. So we are actually connected to both at the same time. But we're finding more and more of the node vendors are foregoing enhancing and building out their CMS because our platform actually can go through their CMS through APIs, or we could actually bypass their CMS and capture the data directly from and push commands to the node vendor, which actually is could be somewhat of a cost savings for some of the customers out there. So not all have CMSs that we work through. Some we work directly with the node itself and other means and capture that data from wherever they have their data depository in the cloud or whatever where that's deposited. So there is no software that the customer even needs to log into for that vendor solution because they're only logging into Terrago.
All right. Next question. Do field crews need to use different apps for different lighting systems?
Okay, well, I think we've talked about that as well. This is the other beauty of the platform is they don't. They don't have to log in and say, oh my gosh, that's vendor A's solution. Let me go try to find vendor A's software and log in. And no, they don't have to. We've abstracted that layer out. They don't log in. In fact, the truth is those CMSs are typically not built for field use anyways. They're not native to mobile. They're native to client server or to laptop, to back office. So they're even built for a mobile interface, which is a thin version of just what the field needs to see. We provide that in the operational layer. So no, we've abstracted that out completely.
Yeah. And I would just add to that answer. It's just not, we normalize everybody's deployment. So it's your operations language that the app speaks. So the app that the crew uses, it's not different for one control vendor to another control vendor. It's also speaking the language of Duke Energy or Georgia Power or the city of Chicago or whomever. And even when we go and we have a deployment in Belgium where it's in French, right? We translate anyway. We're translating the normalization of all these different controls into a single taxonomy based on the customer's needs, and then we speak that language. So the field crews, they use one app, but they really also have one universal way of describing their smart streetlight operations across all the vendors and all the localities as well. So it is the power of a single pane of glass and abstracting any complexity out of places it doesn't need to be. And it certainly doesn't need to be in the hands of the field crew who are just trying to do the job. So that's it.
All right, looks like this is our last one here. Can detective outages be shown on a public-facing outage map to reduce incoming calls?
Well, that is part of um, the Georgia Power customer or community engagement module that Mike mentioned earlier, where that's the whole purpose of it. Why make a phone call into a call center that you and three of your neighbors have done the same thing? So if four people call about the same light, is that four trouble tickets? No, that's just one trouble ticket. And maybe you already knew. So maybe it's no new trouble ticket. Well, without that ability to bring in, remember the funnel slide, bringing all that data into the funnel and then use business rules to sort out what's a duplicate, what's an error, um, then erroneous trouble tickets get created. And a lot of call center volume gets created, which is costly. And the community engagement module they use is completely gotten rid of that. But Mike, we also used a version of that for City of Philadelphia with a different use case for much the same type of spatial mapping. You
That's
want to
right.
mention that?
Yeah, and again, it's the power of saying you've got this operations platform. Go ahead and share it with your customers, share it with your residents or your commercial customers, your residential customers. So in the city of Philadelphia, they were rolling out smart lighting. They were telling the residents about this great program, what it meant for safety and efficiency and sustainability and reducing carbon emissions. And then they shared with them a public portal so they could see when these crews were going to be in their neighborhood, upgrading their streetlights, making their communities safer and more resilient. And it won a Smart 20 award for it. And it increased, the satisfaction of the community, which is a huge issue, right? So if you're a utility, increasing customer satisfaction, engaging them, it's really as easy as sharing this platform. So you've got it. Georgia Power shared it for outages. Philadelphia shared it for the smart lighting program and deployments and all the benefits of the program and showing that progress. But they're just great examples of you've got this platform around your street lighting operations. If you share that with your customers and your stakeholders, you are going to find even greater levels of efficiency and satisfaction.
All
Any other
right.
questions for us, Madison?
It looks like we got them all. So we'll give everybody the rest of their hour back. And that is all for today's webinar. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We're going to be sending out a recording of the webinar after the session. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions. And have a great
Right.
rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thanks so much.